Welcome back. You are tuned in to Traders Nation. My pleasure to have with us here today Randall Jones, a book author of The Richest Man in Town, The 12 Commandments of Wealth. Randy, welcome to Traders Nation. How are you today?
I'm terrific, Kurt.
Good.
Thank you so much.
Good. Pleasure having you here with us today. Also, founder of Worth Magazine, by the way, folks, too. All right, Randy, with today's economy, dreams, are they becoming of a millionaire? Are they becoming dashed? Is there hope still out there?
There is hope, Kurt. Hallelujah. That was my mission when I decided to do this book, The Richest Man in Town. The idea was to see if the American dream was alive and well, and if it was still attainable in these turbulent economic times. And I found 100 examples of people who were living it, and I believe there is great hope that we can all get there one day.
Right. All right. So there's hope out there because, some people, there's doom and gloom. And boy, how do they get past that, Randy? I mean, seriously, there's just all this heavy weight of uncertainty going on out there. And I'm glad that you're finding that some people still think that there's hope that there's to be had. All right. So you
how do they get past it?
Yeah.
3 words: go to work. Doing something. I kept hearing this over and over again. Obviously, you would expect the richest man or richest woman in town to have a strong work ethic.
Sure.
And they, of course, do.
Yeah.
And they believe very strongly that, you can't focus on what you can't control. You have to focus on what you can.
Right.
And that just means getting up every day and getting with it.
Sure. How important is it? I mean, it's okay to dream, but you know what? Inaction doesn't get anybody anywhere, does it? I mean, we literally have to, dreaming is good, but you got to put that dream into action, make it a plan, right?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, one of the great commonalities that I found for the richest man in town, Kurt, was that they're not goal setters. Yeah. Certainly not long-term goal setters, but they are extraordinary at executing.
Right.
Every day, they get up and are determined to do better than they did the day before. It's almost like the Japanese principle of Kaizen, where, small incremental improvements is the way you become the richest man or richest woman in town, not by setting these overly lofty goals.
Yeah.
Yes, you have to have a plan, and yes, you have to have an idea, but at the end of the day, it seems to me, from what I learned in this journey, that execution is everything.
Well, isn't that critical, though? I mean, to this plan is to have those incremental steps, because you know what? Small tastes of success is still success, isn't it?
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely. And I think particularly now when times are tough and many of us are wondering whether we can ever sort of get through this tough economic period.
Right.
I think that's when we really have to focus on doing the things we can do. It's also a great time for sort of introspection and personal assessment, because one of the commonalities that I found, and one of the commandments of the richest man in town, is that these folks have found what I call in the book their perfect pitch.
Yeah.
The thing that they do so uniquely well that the world can't quite take their eyes off of them.
Sure.
And I think so often many of us go through life and we don't figure out what it is that we almost instinctively do well.
Right.
Because if we can find that and practice it, then the money becomes kind of the natural byproduct.
Yeah, doesn't it? I found that through my business experiences over the last 25 years. That's exactly how it happened. So your approach to this book is different, though. Your approach to this was you interviewed the richest people in 100 towns instead of the richest people in America. Why the twist?
Because every town has the guy or the gal who is the most successful person in that town.
Right.
I was interested in looking at self-made success, people who, by dint of their ambition and their drive and their desire, have become the richest man or woman in town.
Yeah.
And every town has one. So, I think so often we look at the world of wealth and success through the lenses of either Wall Street or Hollywood.
Right.
And we forget there's this vast country in between where great things are happening, great wealth is being created, and these individuals are changing the very landscapes of their towns.
Sure, and doesn't that wealth that's being created from in between Hollywood and the East Coast and the West Coast, doesn't that wealth seem to be a little bit more genuine? I mean, for instance, it's more backbone versus overnight success or some thriller that made somebody $1 million and now they're on the map. I mean, that work in those small towns by those people, that's the backbone of good work ethics and Americana. Would you agree with that?
I would, Kurt. It's what I call in the book the rooted rich.
Yeah.
These are people who basically have made it big in their hometown. They've chosen to stay there. In most cases, they've built a business in that town, often have become one of the largest employers in that town, and by virtue of both the employment and their great philanthropy, they've very much changed the way that town looks and feels and operates. And I think it's really important to get out there and see, the real Americana.
Sure.
Because I don't think the media often plays that. I mean, even the Forbes list, basically, it's sort of New York and California folks. And I think it's kind of good for young people particularly to know that they can make it, and they can make it in any town in this country.
All right, so they've done well, and they've given back to their communities too, haven't they? I mean, you talked about giving back, and they're doing
they
it.
have. I say in the book they give as good as they got.
Right.
And yes, you don't get to be $100 million rich, which the poorest one on my list was $100 million rich.
Right.
Without, being a pretty good business person and pretty darn tough.
Right.
But it seems to me that all of these folks, earn their money the old-fashioned way by working hard to get it, by creating some real value there.
Yeah.
And then they do give back.
I'm telling you.
And they understand that that's a part of their responsibility, and most of them really enjoy that process of giving some of their hard-earned money away.
Randy, that's the true smell of success. I'm loving that kind of story. I wish we could see more of that across America. That's how wealth is built, personally, professionally, not only in monetarily, but also in our own beings, okay? What was the one thing that surprised you most doing your research on this book?
Probably how much I liked these people.
Right.
As a sort of cynical journalist, I said, gosh, you're dealing with such extraordinary wealth here.
Yeah.
As I said, $100 million or greater.
Yeah.
And I didn't expect to like them as much as I did. In fact, the editor of my book said, Randy, he changed about 6 words once I turned in my manuscript, but he said, there's one thing, you like these people too much.
Right.
And I said, it is what it is, because these were not the sort of Donald Trumps of the world, the sort of flashy, rich types. I mean, these were just good, grounded, solid human beings that you couldn't help but like and therefore admire because of what they had done. They were and are truly living the American dream.
So, Randy, these are the kind of people that you wouldn't know they had millions of dollars. They would be in jeans drinking coffee down at the diner, and you wouldn't have no idea. That's the kind of person you're talking about.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I will say that these folks live well, but not in an ostentatious kind of way.
Right.
These are not the sort of Beverly Hills, Greenwich, Connecticut hedge fund manager types.
Yeah.
That, with the, they have nice homes and nice cars and travel, but they're not the millionaire next door either.
They're not
the millionaire next door was the kind of guy who got rich by, or at least got $1 million by, putting the money under the mattress, so to speak, and not spending anything. These folks spend and they live well, but they don't live in an egregious way.
Right. All right.
So you're right. You wouldn't recognize them. That's what I loved about it. We usually say rich and famous.
Right.
Well, you've never heard of probably 92% of the people that are in The Richest Man in Town.
All right. Where can we find a copy of The Richest Man in Town today? Where can we find it?
At any Barnes & Noble, Borders, certainly Amazon.com, or through my website, richestmanintown.com.
Loving it. Absolutely fantastic. The Inside Secrets of America's Self-Made Millionaires. Name of the book, The Richest Man in Town, The 12 Commandments of Wealth. And today, W. Randall Jones. Randy, thanks for being with us today. Appreciate it.
My great pleasure. Have a good day.
You're more than welcome. You too. And also, too, folks, don't forget, go out and get a copy of Worth Magazine today, too. All right? The Richest Man in Town, pick up a copy of each at your Barnes & Noble, Amazon.com, or even support that local guy in the corner.